We've noticed something over the years, something that breaks our hearts and that we think breaks the heart of God too. It's no longer the norm that individuals or families have had a positive experience with church or any experience at all. So many of our neighbors and coworkers and friends and family members don't have any interest in the local church altogether. And we want to change that. Why? Because we believe when it's working right, the local church is the hope of the world. We believe that there really is no organization with as much potential to change hearts and transform lives and empower the next generation and make a lasting difference in the world as the local church. And so with God's help, we want to be a light in what may seem like a dark world. And we want that light to start shining right here in the St. Croix Valley. And if you think you're too far gone, we'd love to be the ones to tell you God will always leave a light on. So whether you've been in church your whole life or have never stepped foot in church before, we're excited to open our doors to you and to welcome you to the place where real people and a real God meet. We're glad that you could be with us today.
Hey, good morning, Midcurrent. How are we doing today? We're good? Good. Hey, sometimes I wonder if I should refer to you all as Mid-Corinthians. What do you think? I wondered about that. Sorry. Bad Bible joke. I won't let that happen again. My name is Sten, and I'm the pastor here, and we are just absolutely thrilled to have you with us here today. Whether you're here on site or whether you're tuning in online, we're really thrilled to have you join us on this journey that we're all on and that we're all part of here today. And I really believe great things are going to be happening in this place right here, right now, this morning. I don't know what's been happening in your life this week. I don't know what's been happening in your life this last month or even this last year. But I really do believe that God has been in constant pursuit of you. You might have been in constant pursuit of God too, wanting to connect with God more, wanting to connect with God in a deeper way or in a bigger way. But regardless of who has been pursuing who, I really believe that this place right here, right now, could be that meeting place where you and God meet in a really powerful way, that God gets your attention in a way that maybe He has been trying to for a really long time, right? We work really hard to create that space here where real people just like you and your friends and neighbors in a real God can meet. And so we're really glad to have you here. I'm going to turn things over to Brian and the band, and they're going to lead us with a song that we have just been introducing to all of you Mid-Corinthians over the last couple weeks, and there's a line in it that I love when the power, it's talking about the power of us giving thanks to God and praising God. And there's a line that I love that says, "We'll see you break down every wall." I really do believe God wants to be breaking down walls for us, and sometimes I think one of the biggest walls that exists is the wall in front of the front door of a church, right? For someone to feel comfortable taking a step into the doors of a church for the first time ever, for the first time in a long time. And I believe that God wants to break down that kind of wall and any other kind of wall that exists in your life. And we certainly want to be about that here as well. So we're glad to have you here now. And I'm going to invite you to stand as we do begin singing today, and as we do use this song as a way to remind ourselves of the power and the significance that there is when we lift up music to the great God that we serve. So once again, we're really glad that you're here. Let's sing together.
Silence is the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are when we claim your victory. Let it rise. faith be the song that calls the storm inside of me. Let it rise. Let faith arise. We'll see you break down every wall. Watch the giants fall. You cannot survive when we break through. And God with you's on our side. Forever lifted high. All creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. Praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what heaven looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what heaven looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We see you break down every wall. Watch the giants fall. You cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Ever lifted high. All creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. We are here to bless your name, gathered here to bring you praise. Jesus, you alone are worthy, and we were made to worship you. Hearts are changing when we knew Jesus, you alone are worthy. We sing in heaven's open. Your wind starts blowing. You set us free. We sing the lights are shining. Your spirit's moving. It's a beautiful thing when your people sing. You pour out your love for us. Our lives lay down as our response. Jesus, you alone are worthy. When mercy opens up our eyes, our song becomes undignified. Oh, Jesus, you alone are worthy. We sing in heaven's open. Your wind starts blowing. You set us free. We sing the lights are shining. Your spirit's moving. It's a beautiful thing when your people sing. It's you. The reason we're singing is you. There's nothing we love more than you. Jesus, it's all for you. The reason we're singing is you. There's nothing we Jesus, it's all for you. The reason we're singing is you. Nothing we love more than you. Jesus, it's all for you. We sing in the heavens open, your wind starts blowing, you set us free. Singing your lights start shining, your spirit's moving, it's a beautiful thing. We sing in the heavens open, your wind starts blowing, you set us free. We sing your lights start shining, your spirit's moving, it's a beautiful thing when your people sing. It's you. The reason we're singing is you. There's nothing we love more than you. Jesus, it's all for you. In this next song, the next couple of moments here, we have an opportunity as one community, as one kingdom. We have the opportunity to sing over and over again to the one who is enough. We get to remind ourselves and declare who it is that we run to first, who it is that satisfies our soul when we are a part of the kingdom of heaven. And I don't know where you're at in your life today or where you're at in your faith this morning, but it's our prayer for all of us here today that as we sing this next song together, that we realize just how much power and new life can come from seeking God first. You know, He wants to bring us love, peace, strength, and wisdom. So as we worship this morning, let's open our minds and our hearts together as we continue singing songs to the one who has given us so much. Blessed are the poor in spirit. This is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn. They will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, but they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. They will be filled. They will be filled. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. They will be filled. They will be filled. Oh, this is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. Ask and he will. Just ask and he will. Oh, this is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. All will be added. All will be added. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. All will be added. All will be. You will be filled. You will be filled. And this is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. Ask and he will. Ask and he will. Oh, this is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. Seek first the kingdom, all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, all will be added. All will be added. All will be added. Seek first the kingdom, all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, all will be added. Seek first the kingdom, all will be added. All will be added. All will be You will be filled. You will be filled. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. Ask and he will. Just ask and he will. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. Lord God, we are so grateful to you today, Father. We're so grateful, God, that you tell us if we seek first your kingdom, God, if we seek that first, all other things will fall in line. And Lord, help us to acknowledge, though, that that doesn't mean things are going to be perfect. But what it does mean, God, is that things will work perfectly according to your plan in our lives. So we pray this morning, God, for an extra measure of faith, an extra measure of trust, God, that we would be able to just fully commit ourselves to you, fully commit ourselves to your plan for our lives, God. As long as we seek you first in all things, as long as we chase after you, Jesus, above all else that this world throws at us. God, we love you so much. We are so thankful that you did send Jesus so that we would be forgiven, that we would be able to experience grace and a never-ending love. Father, we pray all this in your Son's name, our Savior Jesus. Amen. Let's be seated.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midcurrent. My name is PJ, and we are extremely excited that you could be here today and join us. One of the things that I love every Sunday coming here is the amazing music that Brian and the band prepare for us and getting to share that with all of you. And one of my favorite things is sometimes when I'm in the car, I hear a song come on the radio that we play here at church, and I get to sing along. I'm not sure if it's other people's favorite in the car with me, but it's my favorite. And recently this happened to me with the song Prodigal. And there's a lyric in that song that goes, "Thought I was miles away, somehow my vision changed. Took me a long, long time to finally realize you never shut the door." And the part that stuck with me in that lyric is this idea of our vision changing and how perspective really is everything. And how when we search for things, we tend to find them. So if we're searching for ways that life is unfair, we're going to find a lot of those ways. If we're searching for what others have and we don't, or how we perceive other people's lives to be better than ours, we're going to find those things as well. And it's kind of funny how we generally search up for those things. We don't look down and thank our lives because it could be so much worse. We tend to be envious of others, and I think the scientific term for that is Instagram. But we can also find other things if we search for them. We can find opportunities. And I've certainly found that true in my life. So most of you probably don't know, I spent most of my life as a hockey player. I grew up playing hockey. I played hockey in college. And I had a 6-year professional hockey career, which was a spectacular failure in my mind, right? It was extremely hard. The harder I tried, the more that I worked, the more that I thought about it, the more it didn't work out. And at the time, the perspective I have was, geez, this just really isn't going very well, and I kind of felt sorry for myself. But the more perspective I've gotten on that, the more that I've changed the way that I've looked at that, I've found the opportunity in it. That wasn't what God wanted for my life. And as soon as I started following a new opportunity that was being shown to me, the more things worked out. They worked out in a way that I can't really explain. And it makes me think about our community here and what it would be like if our community at Midcurrent, our community in the St. Croix Valley, what it would be like if we were searching for opportunities in our lives. What if we were looking for ways that we could make things better? And here at Midcurrent, there's tons of opportunities for us. There's the opportunity to help us spread the mission of Midcurrent, which is to create places and spaces where real God and real people can meet. And one of the ways that we can do that is by giving back to Midcurrent. There's a ton of really easy ways to do that. There's a collection box in the back. You can text any amount. You can give automated on the Church Center app. If you're new here today or it's one of the first times you've been here, we expect nothing from you, but we would love to meet you. And another opportunity is to fill out a connection card. Get to know people here at Midcurrent, get plugged in with what's going on. I can speak from personal experience. It's a tremendous opportunity to find a new community of people. The other opportunity that we have going on right now is to serve on a team. If you want to get involved here at Midcurrent, there is a whole host of volunteers that we link arms with that make everything that we do here possible. And if you're interested in serving here at Midcurrent and joining a team, you can scan that big old QR code there. You can go on the Church Center app, or you can go to midcurrent.churchcenter.com and find out more about those opportunities. It's an incredibly fun way to get involved here at Midcurrent. And the final opportunity that I'm going to tell you about today is coming up on February 26th. There's going to be a meeting Midcurrent. And that's where you can come and meet and learn more about Midcurrent, learn more about the mission, learn more about the vision, and learn more about all things Midcurrent. Sten's going to sit down and talk with everyone. There'll be lunch provided, childcare provided. That's from 12 to 1:30, and we'd love for all of you to come and join us. So that's all for the announcements from me. So we're going to turn it over to Pastor Sten Carlson in the second installment of our message series, I Do.
I'm curious if you ever stop to think about why certain combinations or why certain pairings of food seem acceptable and yet others don't. Like, how did peanut butter and jelly? If I could ask God one question someday, I'd be going, how did peanut butter and jelly become the universally accepted food pairing, but like peanut butter and almost anything else feels too weird and gross? For example, Erica's uncle from Pennsylvania, my wife Erica, her uncle from Pennsylvania will tell you how fondly he remembers growing up eating peanut butter and pickle sandwiches. She texted him just this week, I kid you not, to see, like, A, is this real? B, is this like still a thing? And he responded to her, and I quote, he said, "Yuppers, it's the bomb." Now, that sounds really gross to me, but apparently it's a real thing. So is peanut butter and banana, which I actually am okay with. But again, why? Why is this one okay? Why jelly and banana? Maybe that got a response out of some of you. Why jelly and banana but not pickles, right? Same thing goes for other food combos. I remember growing up, I had a friend, if I spent the night at his house and woke up the next morning, I'd see he was lactose intolerant. And so instead of pouring milk onto his cereal, he used orange juice. And it made me want to gag. It's such an unlikely pairing, but again, why? Why is it? And what made milk the good pairing? What made, how did milk get the monopoly on the cereal? What is it that makes those two work together? Last one here, what about when you think about pizza? Who likes ranch dressing on their pizza? There's a few hands going up. Who thinks that's just gross? Anybody? Okay, there's a few more hands going up. What about honey and pizza crust? Anyone on that one? When Erica and I lived for a few years in Colorado, we were first introduced to the idea. There's a pizza place out there called Bojo's. We were first introduced to the idea of dipping our pizza crust in honey. And it seemed like an odd pairing at first to two like Chicago transplants. It almost felt a little disrespectful to the pizza pie, but it kind of grew on us. And now our whole family, kids and all five of us, like dipping pizza crust into honey. Who would have thought? Okay, it is hard to know when two things are going to make a good combination. It's hard to know if mixing two unique ingredients together, it's hard to know if it's going to work out at all or if it's going to totally backfire. And I think the same thing is true. I think the same thing goes for a whole lot more than food, too. In fact, I think one of the most unlikely and the most risky pairings and combinations ever experimented with is the marriage relationship. Right? Listen to how the marriage relationship is described by Jesus in the New Testament book of Matthew. The religious leaders are getting into a discussion with Jesus about marriage, and he reminds everybody listening of what he thought many of them would know to be true from the Old Testament scriptures long ago. Here's what he says. You can see it on the side screens. Jesus enters into this discussion. He says, "Haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? And he said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and his mother and be united to his wife. And get this, the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one." Okay? Man plus woman, no longer two, but in fact just one, right? It's 1 plus 1 that somehow magically, mysteriously still equals 1. Okay? According to my calculations, this is like the most ultimate, the most beautiful, the most powerful, and the most unique, daring, risky, and unlikely of combinations in history. Why? Because as we learned last week, as we kicked off this series, if you were here, if you caught up online, as we learned last week, not that it was a huge shock, but we learned the first week of this series, that men and women are different, like really different, right? That's what makes this marriage deal such an unlikely pairing and combination. We're different. The good news that we discovered last week is that we're different by design. Our differences did not catch God off guard. His plan for the marriage relationship was not destroyed upon learning that we were different from one another. That was the plan. We were created different on purpose for a purpose. That's the good news. The bad news is that it doesn't guarantee. It doesn't guarantee that this pairing works. We can't just set it and forget it, right? Just because God had a good plan in the beginning, it doesn't mean that we don't have to do our part actively every day along the way, right? The truth is, marriage will work if we are willing to work at it. And so the question that I want to try to answer today is one that seems, mathematically impossible. It almost seems like relationally impossible. The question I want to answer is, how in the world does 2 become 1? How does that work? How is that possible? How does 2 become 1? Now I want to try to answer this question. What do we need to do? What do we need to know? What do we need to understand in order to pull off this most risky combination of all time, riskier than peanut butter and pickles? How do we do it? How does 2 actually become 1? Okay? That is my goal in the second week of this series called I Do. And I'm sure you can tell by this intro or by the title of the series that we are spending a few weeks talking about marriage and how we can strengthen the marriages of which we are a part or build a solid understanding of marriage from the ground up. And before we keep going, I just want to acknowledge, I did this last week, I want to do it again. I just want to acknowledge before we keep going that I recognize that not everyone here is married. I get that, right? And so if you're not, you might be tempted to check out, okay, great, And if that's the case, here's what I want to say. Here's my humble request. Don't do that. Don't check out, right? The truth is, some of you're not married now, but you might be someday. And so the stuff that we're talking about is going to help you now build a really solid framework and a really solid foundation for the marriage relationship that you might be in someday. Others of you, you might not be married, and you might not ever be married for a number of different reasons. But here's what I think is true. You might already or you will maybe someday play a really vital role of support in the marriage of friends and family that are close to you. And so I think this conversation, as you stand alongside of them, I think this conversation is still so good and so relevant for you to be a part of. The second thing I just want to make sure I remind you of is the fact that marriage is not the mark of success in the world. Marriage is not the mark of success in the church. You're not a second-class citizen if you're not yet married. That's not what this message, that's not what the message I want this whole series to send. And the last thing I want to add, too, is that I recognize that some of you, I don't know, maybe you've recently gone through or you're currently going through maybe a painful season of marriage or a painful end of a marriage. And this series is not intended to, add any extra, message of, of shame or guilt or anything onto you. In fact, if that is you right now, we'd love to support you in any way we could. We'd love to be praying for you and standing alongside you in any way that we could that might be helpful. But what I did want to do, right, I still did want to carve out some time this month to talk about marriage like this, because we do have a lot of married couples here. Marriage is so vital, and yet it can be a real challenge too. And so I wanted to take some time to talk about how it is that our marriages will thrive the way that God intended them to, which brings us right back to where I began. It brings us right back to God's intention that in this marriage relationship that 2 would become one. How does this happen? On so many different levels, it almost feels like this is not possible, like it's oil in water, right? There's no possible way that mixing these two unique ingredients, there's no way that it could work. There's no way that the two could become one, right? Well, the truth is it is possible, and it is what God intended, and it is what God designed for the marriage relationship. And so here's, as I keep going here, here's what I want to suggest to you all today. In order for two to become one, which is possible and which is God's design for this deal we call marriage, in order for two to become one, there must be a death. Excited yet? You're glad you came out here for this one today, right? You're like, oh boy, I thought it was bad enough. Okay? Don't get too worried, right? The truth is, for two to become one, there has to be a death, but don't get too worried. It's not a doom and gloom message. It's not going to be dark and the whole deal, but we do need to realize. We do need to realize, and we do need to embrace the reality that something does have to die if our marriages are going to live and are going to thrive as God intended them to. So then, what is it? What is it that needs to die? And why should any of us volunteer for it in the first place? That's what I want to try to answer for all of you, for all of us today. To do so, we are going to turn our attention to the book of 1 Corinthians in the New Testament. This book is actually just a letter that a guy named Paul, he's one of the first ever church leaders. It's a letter that he wrote to Jesus' followers in the city of Corinth. And we're going to turn to chapter 13, 1 Corinthians 13. We're going to turn to that chapter in the letter that he wrote. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, 1 Corinthians 13, why does that sound so familiar? I feel like I've heard someone reference or read from 1 Corinthians 13 before. You probably have. In fact, if you have ever attended a wedding in your life, there is a 99.9999999 chance that the pastor or the bride's Aunt Martha read from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Okay? This is like the classic passage about love in the New Testament. But to be clear, this is actually not a passage about romantic love, right? That the Bible actually has about 4 ways to describe the various forms of love. There's eros, which is the kind of the romantic, the passionate kind of love. There's philia, which is the kind of love that exists between friends. It's the brotherly love, right? Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Then there's also storge, which is the kind of love that a parent has for a child. And then there's agape love, which is the in some ways the highest form of love, a love that is completely of God and from God, sometimes described as the love that God has for his people, as well as the reciprocal love that people have for him and that they have for one another. And the famous wedding verses of 1 Corinthians 13, they're actually referring to, they use the agape form of love. That's the word that's used, agape. But here's why I think that they are still read so often at weddings. Right? Because the marriage relationship is often used as kind of a picture to describe the kind of love that God has for his people. The love that, from the beginning, right? The love that the God of Israel had for the people of Israel, it is considered to be the model for the type of love that exists in a marriage. Right? So no, 1 Corinthians 13 is not talking about the kind of romantic love that we might think exists in a marriage, but it is the kind of love that a marriage cannot exist without. Okay? Eros kind of love might create kind of the spark in a marriage, but agape love, the kind of love that is from God and of God, and the kind of love that resembles the unmerited, gracious love of God that is constantly seeking the benefit of the one that he loves, that is the kind of love that will sustain a marriage. And that's why we need to understand what it's saying. So here is how that kind of love is described in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It says this: love is patient, and love is kind. All of your eyes just rolled into the back of your heads. You're like, okay, here we go again, right? Don't roll your eyes yet. I know you've heard this before, but keep listening closely. Love is patient. Love is kind. It says love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. Then listen to this. This is what I want you to hear today. It says this about love, that it does not demand its own way. It's patient, it's kind, it's not jealous, it's not boastful, proud, or rude, and it does not demand its own way. The literal translation of this is just a short little phrase. It's a Greek verb and it's a pronoun. It's the negative form of the verb to seek along with the pronoun itself. That's the very literal translation. The negative form of the verb to seek along with the pronoun itself. So it's saying that the highest form of love demonstrated by God, that is to be the model for the marriage relationship in many ways, it does not seek itself. Okay? It is not about itself. It is not looking out for itself. It is not primarily concerned about itself, but rather it is most concerned with the object of its love. It does not demand its own way. It does not seek itself. So Midcurrent, this is it right here. Here's what we see. Here's what it is that has to die. Is what I want to share with you today. Here's what has to die in order for two to become one. Me has to die. Why? So that we can win. Okay? In the marriage relationship that is so important, me has to die so that we can live and win and thrive and work together. Me has to die so that we can win. You could also say it like this, that mine has to die so that ours can win. It is the only way, in my estimation, it is the only way that two separate, different, unique individuals can become one. Something has to die, right? And what we see here is that me has to die so that we can win. I learned this very lesson in my own marriage. My wife, Erica, she used to hate getting into an argument with me or a conflict with me because she felt like no matter what, she felt like I would always win. Okay, and it wasn't necessarily because I was always right. She just felt like I could always talk better. She's like, you talk for a living, right? She felt like I could talk better and argue better and articulate better so for no other reason than just a more robust oral argument. She's like, you always win. Right? And Erica got to a place where she would admit that it's she's even hesitant to discuss any varying ideas or opinions or arguments because in her mind, it didn't matter. She would lose, right? So she wasn't even interested in going at it. Now, early on in our marriage, I don't think I saw this as a huge problem. After each argument, I kind of congratulate myself, with another victory and proudly put another check in the win column, still undefeated, 25-0, undisputed champ, still going strong. And some of you are going man, that sounds amazing. I got to learn Sten's ways of, marital conflict and guaranteed victory, because that sounds great, right? Who doesn't want to win? Sounds too great. Well, maybe it was for a while, but eventually, here's the honest to God truth. Here's what I started to realize. Every time I would win, we would lose. Every time I would win, which apparently, unbeknownst to me, was every time. You win every time, right? Every time I would win, we, the two of us, our marriage, our relationship, right, we would lose. Every time a discussion or a conflict or whatever ended in victory for me, our relationship would, it's like we take one step back, right? Our connection would loosen. Our communication would falter, right? Our partnership would take a hit. Right? And so I had to remind myself, I had to learn, right? I still have to remind myself today, I got to remind myself that me winning is not worth us losing. It's not worth it. I kid you not, I got to the place where I would sometimes start to defeat my own point of view, right, in an argument, right? I could see all of a sudden, I could see that Erica was getting discouraged, and I could see that ultimately I realized oh no, man, I could see we are losing. And so when Erica would start to concede victory to me in clear discouragement, I started to turn my own articulation and oral precision against myself. I mean, I'd start to poke holes in my own argument, well, hold on a second here, right? I mean, I can't be that, right on this thing. If I noticed that she was struggling to, find the words to disagree with me, I'd help her to find the words to tell me why I was wrong. I'd be like, come on, hang in there. Don't go down without a fight. I mean, I don't think I'm right on this one the more that I think about it. Me winning was not worth us losing. Now, I'm not saying that every conversation, I'm not, saying that every, hard decision that we had to make or every dilemma or I'm not saying every disagreement ended with, with a perfectly tied bow on top. But what we have learned and maybe what I have learned most in the course of our almost 15 years of marriage this year, what I've learned is that me has to die so that we, the two of us, so that we can win. It is the only way for two, in my estimation, it is the only way for two to become one. Love does not seek itself. It does not demand that it gets its own way. Maybe you've been coming to that same conclusion in your own marriage, or I don't know, maybe the scales are, falling from your eyes right now here as we speak here today, and you're going, oh my goodness, right, this is what's happening, right? Maybe you're coming to that conclusion. If so, right, if you winning in your mind, if you're realizing, man, me winning is not worth us losing, if that's the case, here's what I want to encourage you to start doing this week, to start doing on the drive home, to start doing as soon as you can. Here's what I want to start encouraging you to do. As often as you can, fight to make we, ours, and us more of a priority in more places in your life and in your marriage. Right? As often as you can, everywhere you can, make we, ours, and us the priority that you have for the important parts of your life in your marriage. In fact, I wanted to stop and ask you right now, before you head out of here in a million different directions, I want to ask you right now to take a minute to think about where we, ours, and us could be or needs to be more of a priority in your marriage right now. Where is it? Where does we, ours, and us need to be more of a priority? I can think of a few that I would suggest. Right? Some of you, I don't know, this is maybe you, it's maybe not you. Some of you need to make we, ours, and us more of a priority in your financial life together. And just for a second here, I'm going to get real practical and real direct here for a second. Some of you, and this might not be you, but some of you need to start a joint checking and savings account. You need to scrap the separate accounts and you need to combine them all into one. Now, let me be very clear. No, the Bible does not say that. There's no commandment that says, thou shalt have jointeth checking accounts. I'll be clear with you. It doesn't say that. So maybe I'm skating on thin ice here. I don't know. It doesn't say anything about that, but it does say that two have to become one, and it does say that love does not look out, like after itself only. So in my opinion, there is no better, there is no practical, there is no everyday way. There's no better way to demonstrate the mystery and the beauty of two becoming one than by making your finances one. Right? That's what's yours is hers, and what's hers is yours. I don't know a better way for we to win than for you to win together with your money and your finances and your financial world. To be on the same team with money, to curate dreams and goals and plans together with money, to work together with money, no matter how unfair or unequal it might be. Friends, the truth is there's no better way to lose. There's no better way to lose in marriage. There's no better way to breed comparison and jealousy and resentment and distrust and suspicion and judgment than to keep things separate. Than to have everybody, having both of you kind of looking at the other with concern and suspicion, right? There's no better way to lose together than to keep lives apart from one another, right? So make we, ours, and us more of a priority. And here's one more thing I'm gonna say just when it comes to your finances in a marriage that sometimes drives me nuts. Oftentimes I'll see couples that do have joint accounts, and that's great, right? It's not in the Bible, but right, it was still great here. So oftentimes I see couples that do have joint accounts, but there's something really funky that's going on, right? One will work outside of the house and the other won't work outside of the house. Let's just say, right, traditionally speaking, whatever. Let's say it's the husband that works and the wife that doesn't. Here's what I see from people that I rub shoulders with. Here's what I see sometimes that drives me nuts. If in this scenario, right, if it's the wife that, isn't working outside of the house, she'll feel like she's, like, I hear this. I see this from people. I have conversations. It'll be like the wife who feels like she's got to get, like, permission to kind of spend money in a certain way, or like she doesn't have as much say over the direction of the marriage and the decisions that we're making. Why? Well, because she's not making the money. So you got to come kind of tiptoe into like, well, do I get a say in this? And I just want to say as politely as I can, that's so dumb. If you want to win personally with money, if you want to keep the upper hand and you want to be in control and be the only one to kind of pull all the levers and make all the decisions, then by all means keep this up. Make me the priority. Go for it. But just realize, I'm telling you right now, that we is going to lose. Right? We is probably losing right now. I guarantee if you ask your spouse about a scenario like this, if they're on the other end, I guarantee they'll tell you that we is taking a big hit over stuff like this. No better way. No better way than with our pocketbooks. There's no better way to demonstrate the beauty and the mystery and the power of two becoming one. Others of you, I don't know. Others of you, I'm getting honest here, I guess. Others of you, right? Others of you, you need to make we, ours, and us more of a priority in your sexual and your intimate life together, right? You gotta, if you're uncomfortable about it, you gotta start figuring out a way to get comfortable talking openly and honestly about the needs and the goals and the dreams and the desires you have together for your life in this area together. Right? You got to get comfortable talking about the dreams and the goals and the needs for us, right? If each of you just fight for your own needs, if it's like retreat back to your corner and then come out swinging again, it ain't going to work. Right? If you're just fighting for your own needs, scraping and clawing to get your needs met, it's more likely that you're going to start losing real quick in this scenario. If that's the way you're fighting for yourself, like hypothetically speaking, if I just had to pick one of the two, for example, I don't know if I had to pick. Let's just say it's the husband. I don't know. Let's just pick. Well, just for example here. Right? If the husband's, it could be either, I'm just picking one. If the husband's biggest concern is just getting his needs met, right? You're winning in that area. I'm willing to bet the wife is saying, hey, sure, honey, you might be winning, but we are losing. This is not working in a way that is best for us. So figure out how to, it's different, maybe you didn't grow up in how, figure out a way to make this part of your marriage something that you can talk about, that you can win together. Have goals and dreams and desires together for this vital part of your relationship, right? Make we, ours, and us more of the priority in this part of your life together. And do the same thing. Do the same thing when it comes to your free time. Right? Make we, ours, and us more of a priority when it comes to your free time, when it comes to your hobbies and to your interests, when it comes to your calendar and the schedule that you keep, and when it comes to planning of the guys' trips and the girls' trips and the vacations that you take and the in-laws that you visit, right? You got to make we, ours, and us the priority as often as you can. You got to fight for each other. You got to advocate for each other. You got to help meet the needs of each other because you're trying to win together. Right? Love does not seek itself. It does not demand its own way. Me has to die. In the marriage relationship, me has to die. Ego has to die. Self-centeredness has to die, right? Your demand to be right all the time and to win all the time, it has to die so that we can win and live and thrive together. And here's what's great about this, right? You're not giving up anything. Right? You're not conceding anything. You're not conceding victory. You don't have to worry that you're not going to get your fair shake in this deal. When we and ours and us, when that's the priority, when you're fighting for we, ours, and us, when each of you is advocating for the other and for the we, when each is committed to meeting the needs of the other and the needs you have as a couple, right? When each of you are committed to the other and to the marriage relationship, your needs are still met wherever it is, and you start winning together. And small wins are contagious, and you start saying, man, this is great, and you want to keep winning together, and you do, and God and the other are often honored more so along the way. Imagine if this was truly the everyday priority for more of our marriages, right? The marriages that exist now or the marriages that might exist someday. Imagine if more marriages here at Midcurrent were not characterized by a love that demanded its own way and that was not self-seeking and looking out for itself and constantly going back into the corner to come out swinging again. Imagine if it was characterized by a love that wasn't looking out for itself most of all, but that was most concerned with the object of its love. I think we'd have healthier marriages. We'd have happier homes. We'd be better examples to our kids. There'd be less fighting. There'd be fewer tug of wars constantly in our home. I think there'd be a massive decrease in resentment and bitterness and jealousy and envy that comes when each person is just fighting for themselves. It's just fighting for me rather than we. Not only do I want that to be the case, this kind of marriage, not only do I want that to be the case for my marriage and for your marriage. I want that for you. I want that for us. I want that for me. But I want to live in a world. I want to live in a world where this is the picture of marriage for all to see, that this is the picture of marriage that we paint for the world, a picture of the incredible love that God actually has for us, that God has for humanity. See, what if this is how more marriages operated here? Imagine the joy and the satisfaction. Imagine the accomplishment. Imagine the sense of pride that we would feel in each victory that you'd feel, in each victory that you experience together. Imagine the message. If this was our marriages, your marriage, my marriage, more marriages here, imagine the message those marriages would send to the world. Imagine the picture that our marriages could be to the world of God's love for them, a love that was so strong that he was willing to send Jesus to die so that we could live. What if our marriage, if it is supposed to be, if it could be a picture, what if that's the message that we send? So let's work. Here's my thought. Let's work. Let's work for a marriage that not only works for each other, but let's work for a marriage that reminds the world of that kind of love that exists for them. I think it happens when love does not demand its own way, when it does not seek itself, and when more of us commit to this idea that me has got to die so that we can win, and we can live, and we can thrive, and we can be a big, bright, shining example of God's love for all the world to see. Let me pray for us. God, we got to start there in this conversation. God, we got to acknowledge how good you are, and we got to acknowledge the unfathomable love that you have for us, that you truly would send your son Jesus to die so that we could live, so that we could win in this life that we are living. God, if there are those of us here who haven't accepted that love, who haven't accepted that free gift that you offered to us, God, we got to start there. Right? We cannot give to someone else what we have not accepted from you, God. So we give you thanks that you were the one that first demonstrated this kind of love. And God, if there are those of us here that need to raise our hands and say yes to that, I pray that now would be a moment. Now would be the moment to accept the gift of your amazing love for us. And God, for those of us who have already accepted it, God, for those of us who are already so grateful for it, would you help us to demonstrate it more, to live it out more every day? God, everywhere we go, but specifically as we talk about marriages, would you help us to demonstrate that kind of love more in our marriage relationship, God, and over the during the car ride home today, or over lunch, or over the dinner table, God, would you just be so present in the conversations that happen between husbands and wives today, God, and would you help them graciously, God, would you help them to see where we, ours, and us could be? Maybe it's the one spot, God. Would you help each marriage here, and each marriage in the future, God, would you help each one to see where it is that we, ours, and us needs to be more of a priority. So God, help us to love better and to honor the other and to honor you more each and every single day. So grateful for you, God, for your love for us, and we pray all these things in your name. Amen. Hey, we're so glad to have you here. Before you go, if you're in need of prayer, someone from our prayer team will be right up here to my right to pray for you for anything that might be happening in your life. It would be their honor and privilege to spend a moment in prayer with you. So take advantage of that if you need it. Other than that, have a great rest of your afternoon, and we will see you right back here next week, 9 and 10:30 for week 3 in our series, I Do. We'll see you then.